Have you ever been to a restaurant and had a really good burger and you're wondering what the secret sauce is? And you ask the server and they say, oh, it's just ketchup and mustard mixed together. Well, I like to think of thesis statements as having a secret sauce. There's a component that not a lot of people know about when it comes to making a really effective, debatable, thoughtful thesis statement. A lot of students are able to pretty easily get a 4 out of 5 on a thesis statement. They're able to write a solid thesis statement, but it's not quite an A-level thesis statement until you add what I call the secret sauce. So before we talk about how to improve your thesis, how to add that secret ingredient, I want to remind you of a couple things. Remember that writing is a conversation. You're not writing in a vacuum, right? You're not screaming into the void. Instead, you're having a conversation with other scholars or researchers or critics, and ideally you are adding something to that conversation, even if you're agreeing or disagreeing with what people have said before you. So your claim is a response to what other people have thought. You also want to consider what's at stake, why your argument matters, why you're even writing an essay on this topic. If everything's been said about it already, then it's best to choose a different topic. And of course, you always, as a writer, want to think about who cares, why does this matter, and who is going to find this interesting. So one idea when you're trying to add that secret ingredient is to use a who cares template. Now this can be part of your thesis or this could be a lead up to your thesis, right? You'll notice that some of these are more than one sentence. Remember, a thesis itself can be a sentence or two. Generally, it's best to keep your thesis statement to 2 sentences though. We don't want a thesis that's longer than 2. So you might say something like, this interpretation, your interpretation of a short story, or your interpretation of an idea to improve the campus, whatever it is, challenges the work of critics who have long assumed that X, right? So you're saying how your interpretation is challenging or addressing a common assumption that critics or students or anyone has had about a certain topic. For instance, an eminent scholar of cell biology, blank, assumed in blank, an article or a research journal, her seminal work on cell structures and functions, that fat cells, whatever it is about fat cells. Another leading scientist argued some other point. But a new body of research shows that fat cells are far more complex and then your argument. So with this template, you're saying, okay, a lot of these eminent scholars argue X, and you state the scholars by name and you state where they've published that finding. Other scholars believe Y, right? But here's what I believe based off of X, Y, and Z research, right? So you contextualize your argument a little bit. So you're not just shouting your own opinion, you're responding to what other scholars have said. Or let's say you are writing a proposal to improve the college. You might say, on first glance, peer students might say X, right? That we need more parking spaces, or we need open educational resources, so free online textbooks. But on closer inspection, Y. So you're addressing the other point of view, and you're addressing what a reasonable person might say on the other side. Or these findings challenge college instructors' assumptions that whatever it is. So this would be an essay in which you maybe do research on a certain type of exam or a certain teaching technique. And then you talk about how your findings and your argument challenge what instructors have previously believed, right? So those are some who cares templates that you can add to your thesis or that you can include in your introduction to give your thesis that secret ingredient. There are also some so what templates that you can use. You can think about the significance of your argument, why your argument matters, what's at stake. So you might say something like, if we are right about X, right, that we need cheaper textbooks for students, then major consequences follow for Y, right, that we should lower the tuition or something like that. The proposal for a common final exam for English 101 matters because it's a gatekeeper course that determines whether thousands of peer students will graduate. So if you're going to write an essay about how we need a common final exam for English 101, that might make people want to fall asleep. That might not sound all that interesting. But if you include the what's at stake, because it's a gatekeeper course that determines the success of thousands of peer students, then we understand why it matters. We're more inclined to read the essay, right? It also helps to make the thesis a bit more debatable. In a more informal essay, you could say something like plainly put in a very conversational, blunt way and put your argument. These templates are from the textbook They Say, I Say. Some are also my own templates. Remember that for my class to get a 5 out of 5 on a thesis, you have to do a lot, right? Not only does your thesis have to be debatable, it also has to be analytical. It has to tell how or why or so what, or it has to include what's at stake, why your topic matters, right? So going from a B-level thesis, a 4 out of 5, to a 5 out of 5, that big missing component is the secret sauce. Adding the who cares, or adding the so what, or adding both. I hope that helps.